Resistance is not futile. Resistance is futile is a catchphrase that has become synonymous with the adoption of new technologies. The idea was popularized in Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the Borg, a cybernetically enhanced humanoid droid, has a role to play in forcing other species into a collective to connect to the hive mind. The Borg's singular goal is the consumption of technology. Variants on this phrase include resistance is useless and your struggles are futile. But one needs to ask, resistance to what? To the creature? Perhaps resistance to the status quo and to the collective, or to mass surveillance or targeted uberveillance and privacy invasions, or to unrelenting advertising and to endless apps on our phones. Nowadays, anyone who is seen to oppose any form of perceived progress is considered to be an obstacle to its adoption. The measurable targets and business aims of mega corporates involved in high-tech innovation is to ensure that consumers are in a constant mode of upgrades. It is for consumers to be locked in to not only high-tech gadgetry, but one appliance after another, after another, after another, albeit in the home, in the workshop, or outdoors. In a telling children's cartoon tale, Robots, an entrepreneur robot tells his frontline bot managers the following. Now let's get down to business of sucking every loose penny out of Mr. and Mrs. Average Knucklehead. What's our big ticket item? Upgrades, people, upgrades. That's how we're going to make the dough. Now if we're telling robots that no matter what they're made of, they're fine, how can we expect them to feel crummy enough to be about themselves, to buy our upgrades and make themselves look better? Therefore, I've come up with a new slogan, why be you when you can be new? The 3D industry will only spawn an even greater level of consumerism and give rise to new and novel underlying dangers. But the truth is that struggles are not wasted, opposition is not useless, and resistance is not futile. The worker unions, which rose from the Industrial Revolution, are proof enough that power bases can be challenged and can be defeated. Over the last 10 years especially, there's been a backlash against researchers who ponder on the conceivable harms of new technologies. It might well be easy to be positive about absolutely everything that's ever invented, optimistic about its use in society, and even to be seen as with it and progressive about something that is showcased to be convenient and efficient. But how many are paying attention to the trajectory implications of our future tech, which is becoming increasingly irreversible, and the long-term fallout of these technologies on our humanity, on our ontological freedoms, on our individual rights? We have been led to believe by the transnational puppeteers that we have unlimited choices, but the reality is these infinite choices have in the main to do with the most immaterial of things, from an endless selection of television channels and lifestyle magazines, right through to typically redundant application software and the limitless supply of brand name mobile phones to keep the illusion of choice operating. One of Marshall McLuhan's classic quotes hits the mark. If it works, it's already obsolete. Bruce Springsteen's clever song, 57 channels and there's nothing on, also sums this condition up very well. On things that truly matter, we have either no choice or limited choice. On those who will govern us, the accountability of the corporates, on sending our children to war, the distribution of wealth, the choices we can make as consumers are often more than not meaningless, save for voting with our hard-earned dollars. Do we truly resist? Then opt out, seek alternatives. Now, lots of different choices will often mean amusement and distraction. It's a type of zombification process going on all around us right now, but this is nothing new. Entertainment was always a ploy to numb and to dumb down the masses when things were not going too well or when changes needed to be introduced on the sly. Quote, Hannah Arendt, 1951, only the mob and the elite can be attracted by the momentum of totalitarianism itself. The masses have to be won by propaganda. It is not only the bright lights that can disengage us from deeper reflection, but non-stop noise as well. Instant message after instant message, gadget after gadget, gaming engine after gaming engine, exercise machine and wearable step counter, one after the other, email after email, social media app after app, likes and selfie filters, photoshopping, and a zillion other things. We are drowning in it all, at the cost of our human relationships, our physical relationships, at the cost of our private space in our brains. It is an earnest process of dehumanization. Said in another way, resistance is futile confirms the message that this is inevitable, whatever this happens to be. It says that no matter what I say to you, no matter the red flags that I identify, no matter the harms that I have revealed through my investigations, that this is inevitable. I become powerless to choose, and I am told what will happen before it happens. Who holds this iron fist control over the future? They have us duped if we believe their claims. Marketeers want us to believe that our stance is normally contradictory to the majority, that something's wrong with us, that our position is not unimportant but warped. They try to convince us that the vocal minority will soon stop speaking out because they simply don't have the resources to keep going. This proselytization is shameful trickery. Those conscientious members of large corporations who have glimpsed behind the veil have been the first to admit that the future they are selling is a potentially terrible one and that they will be glad not to be a part of it. Bill Joy, former chief technologist at Sun Microsystems, bravely wrote in 2000 in Wired magazine, "We are being propelled into this new century with no plan, no control, no brakes. Have we already gone too far down the path to alter course?" Resistance is futile, has snuck into every pocket of life. It is our responsibility as researchers and investigators to speak out and point to the alternatives. We need consumer advocates who have at heart the representation of consumers and the everyday people. We need to have a balance that verbalizes, because you can, it doesn't mean it is the right thing to do. We need people marching on the streets. The paradox, more often than not, is that the resistance is futile reprise comes from the very few who allegedly represent the many. They are not any everyday consumers. They're not school teachers. They're not the elderly. They're not the disabled. In this world, nothing can be said to be inevitable except death and taxes. So I'm here to tell you resistance is not futile. Do not despair. You can end this endless adoption of technology. Stop being mesmerized by the next upgrade. Start thinking. Start voting with your wallets. Figure out what's happening to all of us in this gamified personification of conveniences. And especially think about what we are teaching our younger generation. I call it addiction by disruption. What flows from this is usually distraction that disassociates and desensitizes and disconnects us. We are not Borgs. Yet. Ubervalence is not here in its entirety. We are not yet walking around with chip implants embedded in our bodies or strapped to our ankles or wrists. Well, actually, some of us already are. Ubervalence, a term defined by M.G. Michael in 2006, was entered into the Macquarie Dictionary in 2008, a year before Uber Cab company became an entity. It is a type of big brother on the inside looking out, exaggerated in all its forms. Thank you.
Wow, talk about a hard act to follow. I'm a bit shell-shocked by that.